Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have to admit, this whole situation with Rocco and Britt has me more worried than I've been in a long time. When I watch these scenes unfold, I didn't see a reckless teenager making bad decisions. I saw a scared young man who was running out of options. Sometimes life puts people in situations where every choice feels risky, and that's exactly where Rocco is right now. He's far away from home, he's carrying a secret that could change everything, and worst of all, he's watching Britt become weaker and weaker without knowing how to save her. As someone who has lived long enough to see how fear can drive people to do things they normally wouldn't do, I completely understand why Rocco reached out for help. The problem is that fear has a way of opening doors that should stay closed. What really caught my attention was the amount of trust Rocco placed in Charlotte. Even after disappearing and keeping such a huge secret from everyone in Port Charles, he still believed Charlotte was the one person he could depend on. In many ways, that tells me just how desperate he has become. He wasn't trying to create more problems. He simply needed someone he trusted to help him get medication for Britt before her condition became even worse. Watching him make that call was heartbreaking because it felt like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He wanted to protect Britt, but at the same time, he was beginning to realize that he could not do everything on his own. Of course, Charlotte stepped up without hesitation, and Danny became involved as well. The two teenagers genuinely believed they were helping a friend in need. There was something very innocent about the entire situation. They weren't plotting against anyone. They weren't trying to expose a secret. They were simply trying to help someone who was suffering. Unfortunately, General Hospital has taught us many times that good intentions often lead directly to disaster. The moment Charlotte and Danny decided to contact Nathan, I had a terrible feeling that things were about to spiral out of control. The reason is simple. We know something the teenagers do not. We know that Nathan is not the man he claims to be. We know that Cassius has been hiding behind a false identity, gathering information, and positioning himself exactly where he needs to be. That knowledge changes everything. Looking back at the scenes now, every question Cassius asked feels far more sinister than it appeared at first. He didn't seem focused on helping Britt. He seemed focused on gathering information. He wanted details, he wanted confirmation, most importantly, he wanted to know where Britt could be found. That is the moment when my concern turned into genuine fear. In my experience, people with good intentions ask how they can help. People with hidden agendas ask where to find you. Cassius immediately showed interest in the location, and that tells me he understands exactly how valuable this information could be. Rocco thought he was taking a step towards saving Britt, but I fear he may have unknowingly handed their enemies the very clue they have been searching for all this time. What makes the situation even more disturbing is Cassius's history. This is a man who already knows that his mother Liesel has been kidnapped. He understands that she is in danger, yet he continues working alongside dangerous people instead of trying to save her. I keep coming back to that fact because it says a lot about who he really is. If someone can ignore the suffering of their own family, how much compassion can they possibly have for Britt? Why would he suddenly decide to protect her when doing so could put his own plans at risk? The more I think about it, the harder it becomes to believe that Britt will receive any mercy from him. Now that Cassius knows about the connection between Britt and Rocco, I believe the danger surrounding them has increased dramatically. It doesn't take much imagination to see where this story could be heading next. All it would take is one phone call to call him, one message to Sidwell, one conversation with the wrong person. Suddenly, Britt and Rocco could find themselves being hunted. I can easily imagine armed men being sent to track them down. I can imagine professional killers being ordered to bring Britt back or eliminate anyone who stands in the way. The frightening thing is that Britt and Rocco may not even realize how close the danger truly is. What makes this storyline so emotional for me is that nobody involved intended for any of this to happen. Rocco acted out of love, Charlotte acted out of friendship, Danny acted out of loyalty. Every single decision was made with the goal of helping someone, yet somehow those same decisions may have exposed the biggest secret of all. That's the cruel irony of the situation. The very effort to save Britt could end up putting her in more danger than ever before. As I watched these episodes, I couldn't shake the feeling that we are witnessing the beginning of a major tragedy. The walls protecting Britt and Rocco are starting to crumble. Their secret is no longer secure. Information is spreading from person to person like a chain reaction, and now that chain has reached someone who cannot be trusted. In my opinion, that is what makes this story so compelling. It isn't just about villains chasing heroes. It's about how fear, desperation, and love can sometimes create consequences that nobody sees coming until it's too late. The more I think about what Rocco did, the more convinced I become that he may have accidentally triggered a chain of events that nobody can stop. I don't blame the kid for a second. He was scared, he was worried about Britt, and he was desperately trying to keep her alive. But sometimes one small decision can have enormous consequences, and that's exactly what may be happening now. By reaching out for help, Rocco may have unintentionally exposed the very secret that he and Britt worked so hard to protect. What makes this situation so difficult to predict is Cassius himself. I have to admit, every time he appears on screen, I find myself changing my mind about him. 1 minute, I think there is still some goodness left inside him. The next minute, I remember the dangerous people he continues to work with. Recently, it has become obvious that Cassius is struggling with guilt. Pretending to be Nathan isn't something he seems comfortable with anymore. You can see it in the way he reacts around the people who cared about Nathan. You can see the weight of those lies getting heavier and heavier on his shoulders. At the same time, guilt and loyalty are two very different things. Just because Cassius feels bad doesn't mean he will do the right thing. That's the part of this story that keeps me guessing. He is still connected to Sidwell. He is still tied to Cullum. He is still operating in a world where deception, manipulation, and betrayal are everyday tools. For all we know, he could be wrestling with his conscience while still carrying out dangerous orders behind the scenes. I know some viewers may point to the fact that Cassius appeared willing to help Lulu and Dante. On the surface, that certainly looks encouraging. It creates the impression that he may be moving toward redemption. But I've watched enough soap operas over the years to know that appearances can be deceiving. Cassius is standing with one foot in each world. Part of him seems drawn toward doing the right thing, while another part remains connected to some very dangerous people. Until he finally chooses a side, nobody can truly know where his loyalties lie. What fascinates me most is that Cassius had opportunities to betray Britt and Rocco immediately if he wanted to. He could have quietly contacted Cullum the moment he received information about their situation. He could have delivered their location without raising suspicion. He could have turned them over without anyone in Port Charles ever discovering the truth. The fact that he hasn't done that yet leaves the door open to several possibilities. Maybe his guilt is getting stronger. Maybe Nathan's memory is influencing him. Or maybe he's simply waiting for the right moment to make his next move. Unfortunately, Britt and Rocco cannot afford to rely on hope. Whether Cassius intends to protect them or not, the danger surrounding them is becoming impossible to ignore. Cullum is growing more desperate as pressure mounts from every direction. Desperate people make reckless decisions. They stop caring about consequences. They stop worrying about innocent lives. All they care about is survival, and that makes them far more dangerous than before. Personally, I don't think Britt and Rocco can remain hidden much longer. Their story feels like it's moving toward an inevitable return to Port Charles. Too many people are searching for answers. Too many secrets are beginning to surface. And most importantly, too many dangerous players are closing in on them from all directions. As I look at everything happening right now, I keep coming back to one thought. Rocco never intended to create this mess. He was simply trying to save someone he loved. Yet that single decision may have set off a chain reaction that changes the lives of Britt, Cassius, Lulu, Dante, and everyone else connected to this story. Whether Cassius ultimately becomes their protector or their downfall remains the biggest mystery. But one thing feels certain to me. The countdown has already begun, and whatever happens next will likely force Britt and Rocco out of hiding and back to Port Charles sooner rather than later.